So top-level athletes, successful business people, and achievers all set, all set goals. Setting goals gives you long-term vision and short-term motivation. It focuses your acquisition of knowledge and helps you achieve the things that you actually care about. After setting goals, though, it's sometimes hard to actually accomplish them and succeed in working towards them. So we'll focus on this panel on the different ways in which our panelists are doing tips and tricks that they're actually working in order to succeed with the goals. So with that, let's start with everybody on the panel. Say a little bit something about yourself and a goal that you're proud of that you have accomplished.
I guess I'll start. My name's Charmine Brovaric-Chap, and I'm a lead product manager here at Twitch. I am really proud of a goal that I accomplished last year, which was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro with my husband on our honeymoon.
Hi, I'm Natalia Archibald. I lead analytics at Goodreads, and the goal I'm very proud of is something very personal. I wanted to play more tennis and figure out how to do it.
My name's Emily. I'm on the finance and strategy team at Stripe, been there for about 2.5 years. One of the goals that I'm proud of professionally would be having completed now my CFA and my CPA. So for those in tech, that'd be the finance and accounting designations.
My name is Manasa. I lead product operations at Twilio. Coincidentally, I'm wearing purple today, only to realize that it's the color of Twitch. The goal I'm proud of is since last year, I've been, I'm passionate about like working on habits and creating a habit. So I don't know how many of you all know about Matt Cutts, who's a TEDx speaker. So just like him, I do something every single day for 30 days for every single month. So I've been creating habits that way. So I've had like 12 different habits over the past year.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Lida. I run the US office for a consultancy that does branding, development, and design in Mexico City, and we have an office here as well. One goal, which is funny because I changed my goal because I got some inspiration from the rest of you. So I have gone to many silent meditation retreats, like many 10-day ones, 3-day ones, and so on. And there was one that there were a lot of requirements before you could go to this like specific meditation retreat, which is kind of ironic because the whole point of mindfulness is to like let go. But I was like, yes, I finally achieved this goal and went to this really amazing meditation retreat and got back a couple months ago. So that would be mine.
And I'm Esther. I'm a software engineer. I was at Mix and StumbleUpon, which is a content discovery platform. And a goal that I'm proud of is actually this right now. Speaking up and talking in front of people is something that I've been told I should work on and do it. So here I am. I always find it hard to balance between work and personal goals. So the question here is, how do you do it? And if so, are there any challenges of having both personal and professional goals? Charmine, you had a pretty impressive personal goal. But you also had, what are your views on why it's important to have personal goals?
Yeah, so I personally think that it's really important to have growth outside of work because you don't want work to be your life. I try to compartmentalize some part of it, which is actually very difficult to do in the Bay Area because we create this culture of come here, have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then hang out and play games afterward and socialize with your coworkers. And then you go home, you sleep, you wake up, and you do it all over again. So how do you break that pattern? So a personal goal that I have is actually to go home and cook dinner with my husband every day. And I broke the rule today, and I had pizza, but I'm here for this event, so I think it's worth it. And another thing is so kind of making sure that you have growth personally at home, but then also when you're at work, making sure that your work goals align with your long-term personal career goals, and being able to recognize that when they're not in alignment anymore, it might be time to make a switch, and there's nothing wrong with that. And encouraging that you can have these conversations with your manager and check in and not be scared about those types of conversations.
And Lita, you spoke about how you have like a personal coach that helps you out with doing both goals.
Yeah, what's great is she's sitting right over here, Jen. So I've been working with a coach since last year, and prior to that, also went through the West Mentorship Program. So that was great, and I'm looking forward to mentoring this year. So I think it's really helpful to have like an accountability partner. So whether that is a friend that, I have a friend who texts her lunch option to another friend just to like make sure that she stays accountable for her goal of like fitting into her wedding dress. So it could be something like that, very kind of casual and easy, and you don't even need a response. You just kind of do it to keep accountable. So I think both having a mentor and sometimes even a coach has really helped me to kind of both, like Charmaine said, align the personal and professional goals, but also you always get homework after every call, so you gotta stay accountable and do them. So.
And then when I try to actually come up with my goals, sometimes I start with like a blank page, and it's kind of scary of where to actually start and how to do it. Emily, you use an octopus to come up with goals.
Yeah, so I was trying to explain to the team how I set goals every year. And I've done this now for 4 years running. I always start every year, and the reason why I say an octopus is I always start off imagining Da Vinci's drawing of the man, and then I sort of envision that every limb that sticks out is one aspect of my life that I want to focus on. And what ends up happening is it really looks more like an octopus because there's like arts, for example, is one of them. What I call another category is brain food. There's the work, there's personal relationships, and I sort of map out all the focus areas. And then from there, if you guys have seen Simon Sinek's talk about the why, I always start off with sort of, why is something important to me? Why is that focus area so important? Then what does it mean to actually achieve it? And then every time I go through it, and I'll then go to then how do I get to that point? What are the tiny little goals that break down that bigger goal that then make the why area achievable? And so the why is very, very abstract, but then I break it down into smaller goals.
And when do you come up with the why?
I started off at the beginning of the year, and every year I always do it on my flight back to San Francisco, usually around New Year's Day. And I spend a couple hours just free writing on the plane about like what happened in the last year. I review everything that I wrote the year before, and just also track to see like what did I actually miss from last year. Think about why did I skip that? Maybe it's just something I deprioritized, and that's okay. I don't actually try to hit every single goal that I set. I only try to hit for about 80%.
And Natalia, when we spoke earlier, you told me about how you narrowed down your goals. Could you tell us more about it?
Yes, I don't like to not have things happen. So for me, it's very important to prioritize because I have lots of things going on in my life. I'm a parent. I have lots of demands on my personal life and professional life. So doing few things well, in my mind, is much more important than trying to shotgun a lot of across of things. So really be witting from goals perspective and what to focus on. And then you have a greater success of doing those things well versus trying to do 5 things that your friends also thinks are cool versus like what is truly important to you. Pick one in your personal life, pick one in your professional lives, and focus.
Yeah, I think also what's something really cool when I asked her also, like, where do you keep it down and where do you draw it? She's like, I only have 2, so I don't need to like remember somewhere. Manasa, it's important for you to break down your goals. Yeah. Why?
Mainly to make them achievable. I think the smaller your goal, I mean, you can have like a bigger vision, but then you can set down to like break them into more smaller components so that you can achieve them. And it gives you a sense of satisfaction, it gives you a sense of acknowledgement that you are, setting progress and you're making progress. It's a little bit of trick your mind saying that, you're doing something, so that sets you forward towards fulfilling that task or like getting your goal done.
Yeah. And then how do you come up with those like steps along the way?
Yeah, like I use two different ways. So I use Google Docs to set down like my bigger vision statement. So at the beginning of the year, I kind of like write down like what I want to do, and every quarter, and I just do this because like it's easier for me even at work because we do quarterly reviews. So I do similar quarterly review with my partner for my personal goals, and we go through like every single thing. And then I've dabbled across like a different multiple apps, and Todoist is something that has worked very well for me. So I break that down into like smaller goals, and I just like tick it off. And I strongly recommend you watch Matt Cutts, this video by Matt Cutts, where he talks about how you create a habit, because it's almost very similar to like how you create a goal or like how you're achieving a goal, right? Like if you're doing something every single day for like 30 days, it forms a habit. And you know, when you start applying the same concept towards like achieving something, which becomes your where you're approaching your main goal. And also making goals very specific and making sure you're measuring them, it's very important. So what I do is I also have a Google form where every night I make sure I tick it off. Whether it's like drinking 10 glasses of water or like, you know, making sure that these were the tasks that I accomplished this day, and I have a to-do list for the next day. So that's how I track it.
Nice. When you're coming up with your goals, do you think of them in terms of like yearly goal, 5 years, 10-year goals? Sharmeen, I thought you had a really cool way of thinking about it with values and.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember what that was. I'm not gonna lie. So I reject the question of what is your 5 or 10-year goal, because I think every year that I am in my career or in my life, I'm usually in a place that I wasn't expecting to be the year before. So planning that far out ahead doesn't really make sense to me because it's always veering paths and changing. So instead, I like to think of what are my long-term values? What do I want out of my life? How do I want to live my life, and what are the bigger impacts that I want to make? So more of a value system, and then making sure the intermediate steps that I'm taking, the 6-month goals or the 1 to 2 year goals, are helping me achieve those values or keeping me in line with those values.
And then, Lita, you mentioned you use personality tests to help you out with.
Well, yeah. So I think one thing I'd mentioned is like there are certain things about me that seem to change every like 5 years. So it's really hard to think of like these broad strokes of like 5 or 10 years. So I was mentioning to you that I took the Myers-Briggs test like in high school and then in university and then like a few years ago. And each time it's like slightly different. I always am like, I think an INTP, but like the numbers always change. And now I'm like very borderline, like extrovert, introvert. But one thing that doesn't change is like values. So I also use the values system to kind of like make up my yearly goals, which then feed into like a monthly checklist that I have, and then like a weekly like progress. I don't go that. I'm like now taking notes that I should have a daily one as well. But I do rate my days. So like it's very subjective, but every day I'll rate my day from like 1 to 10 of how it was, just so I also have like an account of like different things going on in my life. And then I'm Persian, so I get like 2 tries at the Persian New Year and like the normal New Year, which is January 1st, and then March 21st I get a recheck. So I'm like, okay, are these goals like attainable? And if not, I kind of like switch them up. So this year I went from 10 goals to 5. So I think I'm set. Yeah.
Great. So now you have your goals set up. How do you actually start working on them, and how do you prioritize which ones to work on? Natalia, you mentioned that you only keep 1 to 2 goals per year and that they're an inspiration. What do you do to get started on them?
I think the big motivation for me is to make sure you know the path how to get to your goal. So breaking it up into meaningful things that you can accomplish every month and keeping yourself honest. I think the biggest failure could be that you set up an inspirational goal but don't have a way to get there. So making sure that when you're thinking of the goals, you also thought of, is there a path to get there and what does that path look like? And then asking for advice. I found that reaching out to a lot of other women and other professionals, friends, colleagues, former colleagues, is very helpful just to get ideas. Take somebody out for a coffee, ask.
And then Emily, you do monthly reviews. How does that help you?
Yeah, so for me, I do all of my goals within a road mapping software called Roadmonk. Um, and slightly neurotic. I acknowledge that. And it's all color coded too. So each one of the
You
focus
almost
areas-
wanted to show it to everybody.
it helps with it really helps because I'm neurotic, because it helps with mapping what I've actually done. And so what helps is actually, I think at every point in the month, there will be some point where I will basically just be like, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything this month, or I haven't done anything this week. And then I'll immediately start panicking a little bit. And so what I do whenever that happens, is I pull up this roadmap, which then shows what have I actually done this year. Am I tracking well? Am I not? And then I do a monthly review also to then be like, okay, what dropped off in the last month? What do I need to change about the habits that I'm going to have for the next month? And maybe it's just also something where I just need to reprioritize, or it's something that dropped off because I don't feel like it's as important as other things that may have come up.
Yeah. And Sharmeen, you mentioned that you get the help of a mentor with working on your goals.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I'm a procrastinator. If I have one thing due at the end of the week, I'll do it Friday afternoon. So I always tell everyone I'm working with I need 10 to 100 things to do at any given time, because then I'll get them all done in the same time frame and I'm a lot more productive. So similarly with personal goals, it's a little bit harder to hold yourself accountable that way. So I love having a mentor, and sometimes multiple mentors, to focus on the different things that I'm trying to achieve in my personal or career goals. And I use that to get me motivated, because the moment I tell somebody that I'm going to do something, then I'm holding myself accountable, and it forces me to do it, because the shame or the guilt of not doing what I said I would is much greater than the need to procrastinate. So my mentors not only force me into doing what I say I will, but as I think Lita mentioned, like, they also give you homework, or after those meetings, there are very clear to-do lists to follow, and usually you're also very energized. So not only do you have a path forward, but you're excited to take charge. So I love that.
And also the way you find mentors is kind of
Yes. So I tend to look for people who excel in the goal that I want to achieve. So if I've outlined, like, these are some of the growth opportunities for me, then I'll think, who already excels in that area, and who do I really look up to or respect that is very good at this? And then I'll reach out to them with that purpose. And it also helps because then they're more inclined to say yes when you ask them, because they understand the connection and how they might be able to help you.
That's really cool. So does your current company provide structure for setting your goals, or is it up to you? Does your manager help to keep you on track, or does the discussion of goals only comes up in performance review? Manasa, you said about how your company believes.
Yeah, so Twilio almost follows the model of Google's OKRs. So what we call is the OMGs. There's a Twilion right here. It's called objectives and measurable goals. It follows a very similar statement of, like, create a big vision statement and then create objectives where you can measure them. So we build them down into, like, smaller components, so that whoever's assigned that particular task or that particular goal feels entitled and feels responsible for achieving that. So managers play a huge role, and my manager has definitely been always constantly checking on what we're doing and how we're accomplishing it. We have, like, bi-weekly check-ins, and what Twilio also believes in is instant feedback. So instead of, like, annual reviews, we have, like, quarterly check-ins and quarterly feedback sessions, and if feedback has to be given, it's usually very instant. So that actually helps a lot.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you said how there's a concept of ongoing feedback.
Yeah.
But and Lita, you run your own U.S. office.
Yes.
How do you goal works there?
Yeah, we might be growing the team, so keep in touch with me. So what's great is that I am my own boss for this office. So if I decide, like today, that I'm going to go to yoga at 9 a.m., then I just do that until 10:30. So if my boss is watching, that's where I was. But so it's really great. So I get to make my own goals, but then of course it comes with the kind of the responsibilities as well. So that means if I take an hour and a half to go to yoga, then I also have to make up for that in a different way. So yeah, and what we do, similar to what Manasa said, is feedback. So we use the 360 model, which is that you get feedback from both your like bosses, who are in my case the two founders of this consultancy, but also the other team members who I like directly and also indirectly work with, and then it's like reciprocal. So if they have a feedback session coming up, I can also participate. So I really like that because it kind of keeps you on your goals, but then you also get like some feedback from folks that you might not necessarily otherwise work with very closely. So I think that's really helpful. But it's really nice that I get to kind of be very proactive with my goal setting.
And are there any tricks you do to get motivated on the goals and keep going past January? And this is for everybody. So whoever wants to start.
I have the mic. So I mentioned I have like quarterly kind of check-ins. I think someone mentioned earlier, and I always think towards the end of the month what could make the following month better. So already this week I'm thinking of like what could make April better, both in terms of like personally and professionally. So that's how I keep a momentum. And also just like some tricks that I do, like I mentioned, just yoga. So now it's top of mind. So like I know everybody's gonna be like swarming the yoga studio January and February. So then I'm like, okay, I will have my like class pass situation going. But then come March, I'm like full on, you know? So I think sometimes also realizing to keep the momentum going, you need to like not be following the herd and only do it in January, and to keep yourself accountable throughout the year.
I think one of the actually it's both a tip and a trick on how to achieve a task or fulfill a task or achieve your goal is there's some factors that you can control and you cannot control, right? So factors that you can control is time. So when you're trying to set a goal, for example, like it actually applies to me. If I want to go running, I want to make sure that I'm setting it at a time where I can actually go do that instead of saying, okay, I'm going to run at 12 p.m., which I know I cannot. So when you start doing that, it will help you like make progress, it will help you feel more accountable, and you will achieve that, right? So that's going to give you a sense of achievement, and you'll actually start making progress towards it.
I agree a lot with what Manisha said about the need to have a feeling of achievement, because I think that actually is one of the most powerful things that then motivates you to continue working along that work stream to work towards your goals. For me, for the roadmap, so then serve to each area, I have a quote which I spend probably the most amount of time thinking about, which is for each area is like my why statement. And that for me is, if I've set that correctly, that is my biggest motivator. It's very, very abstract. And then sort of again to the roadmap is I've put little pins down of what like the smaller items that I have to then work towards. And so if I miss one, it's like, for me, it's, okay, so I have to move that one. I missed one, but then there's still more in the pipeline. And so it's not like, oh, because you missed one, you're completely off track for the rest of the year and like start over. It's like, oh, no, this is just like one miss, keep going. And now that once I've built up all these little pins of things I've actually done, then that's really powerful and really motivating.
For me, both scheduling and then calendaring the events far out for the full year is probably the biggest motivation. So not only thought of what it takes to achieve your goal, you schedule it mentally and then you block yourself on the calendar. For being it professional or personal, I think it's very important to set a set time, and then you know that, okay, I have those 2 hours to do whatever.
So many awesome tips. I've run out of ideas. So this is a little nerdy, but Tom can attest to this. Something we do at Twitch for product management is we set output goals and input goals. And I'm totally stealing this from our CEO, but I think it's very applicable. So what I love is that your output goal could be, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds in the next 6 months. But that's super abstract and you don't actually know how to achieve it. And so again, breaking it down into your input goals should be something that you actually can take action on. So the input goals for that could be, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. And that's actually something that I can track and achieve. And hopefully if I'm doing that well, I should check in and see progress toward my overall output goal. And again, it's the same of just making sure you can feel that kind of excitement and progress that you're making toward your overall goals.
Nice. Has there been a goal that you accomplished which you were surprised at how easy it was to actually get done? Emily, you set a goal about 350 hours to accomplish studying for your CFA? How did you do it?
Yeah, so when I first started off at Stripe, much smaller office, we were all doing a lot of hours. We were doing about probably between 10 to 14 hours consistently, usually more on the higher end. And right around that time, it was when I had to make a decision of whether or not I was going to finish my CFA and do the last level. It's recommended that you spend about 350 hours studying for the last level, and I had about 3 or 4 months beforehand. Again, to making it super achievable, I started off by actually writing down on a piece of paper. I wrote the quote of like why I wanted to finish this exam, and then I put a tally for every hour I did. So every time I did an hour, I'd put a little tally mark. Until even the week before the exam, I finally hit the 350. It was like 2 days before the exam, and I finally hit the 350, and I think that was it. It was just even that simple act of putting a tally down for each and every single hour, that was the way that I was able to do it.
Nice.
And a lot of 4:30 a.m. wake-ups.
Lita, you said about how you worked with the managing partners and your coach to help you with.
Yeah, so again, I think it's really beneficial to have mentors and also a coach if you think that would help. I think it does because in my case, I like had just started working with this company, and there's two partners, and I'm reporting to them, and also it's a remote team, and so many like factors that I thought were like overwhelming in order to like manage up essentially and say, okay, these are the values I really believe in. And to your point, Emily, like I also really think it's good to have like your values like in even your one-on-one docs, which my coach and I started doing, because then it keeps you always like grounded in the high level rather than like getting lost in the weeds. So one thing that was really easy actually in hindsight was this concept that actually the COO of Stripe, I didn't know that that's where he worked, but she started this process of an open letter, which I really love. And it's essentially like she wrote this letter of how it's like to work with her. And for every single colleague who then joins her team, they already know what it's like. So for me, based on the 6 values that I identified to be my top and that have essentially not wavered for like over a decade, I have like a separate section for every single goal. So for example, like most people, including the partners, had no idea I'm an introvert. So I had to put it in a section like, surprise, I'm an introvert. And also if you ask me like a direct question, it might take me like a little longer to come up with an answer and just like things like that. And I was hesitant to send this because it felt like, who am I to like designate what the process should be? But I think in doing it mindfully and having my coach egg me on, and she was like, when are you gonna send this? And it was on a Monday, and I'm like, I'll send it on Wednesday. And I did, and like the partner like loved it. So I'm like, this was such a like a goal that I found so overwhelming, but it was like super easy actually. So that's one that I can attest was easier than I thought.
And Vanessa, you also had a really interesting one.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking which one is that, but I think it's about writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So writing is not my strong asset, but I wanted to like get better at it mainly because like I learn a lot from people, right? I love learning new things. I like applying the same things onto myself. I also like to like coach and mentor people and like give back on what I learned based on my experiences. And I thought writing is one medium apart from like having one-on-one conversations, mainly because of the reach that it has. So yeah, I took that as a challenge. I took that as a goal. I made it accountable by telling people that I will be writing. So if anybody is going to like ask me, like again, like someone said here, like the shame and guilt. So yeah, I just wanted to talk to people, tell my managers or like my friends and stuff. And when they ask me, I actually have something. So I'm making some progress, if not for like great progress on that.
Nice. Has there been a goal that you've given up on, and what did you learn from that? Natalia? I like what you said about not being too hard on yourself. And
I'm clearly much older than most people here, and I think through the years, what I've learned is if I want this to be a long-lasting relationship, I want to be a parent for a long time and successful at it. I want to continue working. You gotta be easy on yourself. If you're your own worst critic, that's horrible because you only have you. So be kind to yourself. Find those that like you. I always tell my kids, you have to have friends that like you. You don't have to be friends with everybody, but find those that like you, that enjoy your company. And that's what it's important to me, to find those that like you. But also be kind to yourself. Set the goals. You're going to make some, you're going to miss some, but know that you're making progress and know you have another go at it.
And then Emily, you mentioned about not hitting all your goals and 80% of them. Like, what do you do once those goals that you found?
So a big reason for why I don't actually try to hit 100% of them is I think so many of the greatest opportunities that I've had were completely unexpected. And so you can't really plan for those. And so by not forcing myself to hit 100%, I've actually left room to be like, if there's an opportunity, if there's a trip, if there's something that comes up in my life, then I've given myself the flexibility for that. And so what I've found also is that there's usually trends. So for me, I always say I'm going to play more piano, and that's usually the first thing to fall off. And so this year, when I realized that happened for the last 2 years, then this year I was like, well, I think I want to believe that I want to learn how to play better. And I think the reality is, like, when push comes to shove, I just deprioritize it. And I think this is the first year where I've been like, okay, I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, for all those piano lessons you sent me to, but it is what it is, and it's something that I've come to peace with.
Nice. And this one's going to be around for everybody. How do you help others come up with their own goals?
So one thing that I think is really important here is not telling other people what to do. So what I normally like to do when I'm helping others come up with their goals is to try to ask the right questions that get them to think deeply about, what are my values? What am I thinking of? What are the reasons that I want to achieve something? Are they the right reasons? And kind of digging into those and figuring out what those questions are. And then that way each person that you're working with or talking to can come to that realization for themselves what their goals are and what it means to them.
I sometimes try to employ the eye exam method, where it's like 1 or 2, 3 or 4. So if you have somebody come to you and say, I want to switch my job because I want it to be fulfilling and I want to grow and I want a new title and a salary. You're like, okay, what is more important, title or salary, A or B? And then again, is it something you want to do or something that you're okay doing because it's a bigger salary? So giving everybody those choices where you have to pick one, I think, is what I've found that's been helpful in some of the conversations I've had.
For me, I work with a bunch of people from university and also high schools when setting goals, and I think a lot of times there's a lot of pressure from the outside world, both in terms of parents or professors or teachers, about what they ought to do, or what everyone who goes into a business program should do investment banking. And I think a lot of that is then really asking, exactly to your point, like the questions of why. Like what makes you happy? Where do you what are the kinds of things that you like doing? And really focusing on those questions and helping people. I actually have an exercise I work through usually with them, which is coming to their mission statement. Not necessarily something that they're going to do for the rest of their lives, but their mission statement for the next couple years that then can help center on then what are the things that fall out of that, right? What are their values? So very question-based.
I think for me, it is about setting a clear vision statement, because if you don't have a good, clear vision statement, you don't know what you'd be achieving. So making your goals very specific, so I make sure that they know what they're going to accomplish, they know what they're going to do, and what they're responsible for. At the same time, also identifying their strengths and aligning the goals towards that, so they feel that they can achieve that, and also have room for growth, so that they can also work on other stuff that they're not comfortable about.
Okay, I'll try to sum up some of the things that have been said. So 10 years ago, I actually taught English in Japan. And I think there's there's so many Japanese concepts that I love. And one that I really love is ikigai, which is where, if you draw a Venn diagram with 3 circles, is where your passion intersects with the need in the world, along with the value. Ideally you get paid for it, and if not, you add some value. So that was something that actually my high school students kind of taught me in terms of the the concept and what the word meant. And that's something that I try to like surface in some of the mentee relationships that I've had. So one organization that I really love is Braven, and they help college students and grads in the Bay Area who are usually like underrepresented minorities and or first generation going to college. And I found it really works with them to have this like passion, value, need intersection. So that's what I would say.
Nice. And now I think it's opening it up to Q&A from the crowd. So does anybody have any questions? We have a little box that is actually a mic. So we
This is a
will-
mic, I think.
Yes. And then we'll go after.
Sound check. Okay, cool, that worked. I'd like to contribute a tip, and then I'd like to put you all on the spot. So hopefully that's okay. Oh, is there a protocol for talking, by the way, for asking questions? Okay, awesome. So the tip I wanted to contribute for sticking to your goals, this is a thing that I do, is we all have to manage 1 million passwords. I will actually set my passwords to be the goal that I'm after. So for example, and like, obviously, a lot of people use password managers here, but for the accounts where you don't want to use password managers, so like burner emails, Eventbrite things. Sorry, Eventbrite. You know, I might say like drink 10 glasses of water a day or something. And it's really important to have specific goals, because otherwise, if you say lose weight, fitness, like you're opening yourself up to a dictionary attack. So I would really not recommend that, right? So it aligns a lot of goal-setting things, and you have to, every time you log into one of these things, you're reminding yourself of what the problem in front of you is. So that's been helpful for me. Now to put you guys on the spot, I'd like to know what your most common failure modes are for you achieving your goals, and how do you recover? How do you go about recovering?
I actually didn't know I was doing that. I only did it for Facebook, but of course, because no one's like typing their password, I haven't typed it in a while, so I'll take that tip. That's awesome. I think one failure point for me is like, I think many people here are very ambitious and like perfectionists, and I am as well. And like I would just set too many goals. And I think what I've done is, like I said, I had 10 goals that seemed like such focused goals, and at the beginning of the year, and then I got them down to 5, and now based on Natalia's wise advice, I'm gonna try to like nest some in so that it'll go down to 2, which I feel like is cheating, but I think that's my failure point.
I'll go later.
My failure mode is probably just staying. I think it's very easy to stay busy in the city. I think you can go to a different event every single night. You can go get dinner with people from work, with people that you know socially. I think there are 1,000,001 things you can do. And for me, my failure mode is definitely just keeping busy and forgetting to make time for myself. And then forgetting to make time to like focus on the goals that I set, because most of those aren't with people. Most of them are very focused on like having that time to read enough, or having that time to build a new skill. So sorry. The recovery point for me is I do the monthly check-in, and usually before that point too, I know if I don't hit a certain, I actually track the number of hours I sleep per night, and so I always know that if I'm hanging out with friends, or if I'm doing something, or if I'm working too much, my sleep is the first thing to go, and if I don't get enough within a week, I actually get a little alert, and so that also is another reset.
For me, it's disappointment in not getting far enough on the goals, hence why now I only have 2.
My failure mode is definitely procrastination. I think I called myself out on that earlier. And the way that I try to get around it is hold myself accountable. And again, I use my own guilt and shame for that. So either setting them through with mentors, but I've also sent out tweets in the past just to the Twitterverse saying, I'm going to do this tomorrow, and force myself to then tweet back in a day and say, hey, I did it. If anybody cares, I did it. So anything, like I loved I'm going to send a text message to a friend to say this is what I'm eating, or, you know, just you find different ways to shame yourself.
Okay, next question.
Hi. I think that somebody brought up earlier having mentors and having coaches. And what is the difference in that, and what do those people provide?
I can give you my version, but if you'd like straight from the coach's mouth. Jen is here. So for me, my mentor and previous mentors, I like similar to Charmaine, I seek them out for a specific goal, and then I say like you, for example, in the previous setting, I founded a startup, and then I wasn't sure whether I should like dissolve it or try to sell it, or I had all these questions, and then I wanted to make a transition into a full-time role, which I did. So I sought out somebody who had done exactly that. And he was my mentor through West, and he had like started a startup and then gotten it acquired and then stayed with the company and then switched roles. Of course, he's like very senior, but he was great in helping me walk through the path of his thinking and show me for myself that that wouldn't be the right thing for me. And I actually decided to dissolve the company. So that is one thing for the mentors that is like their experience, you kind of glean from it what you can. Whereas with my coach, I kind of like tell her what I'm working on, and we have very specific agenda items that I fill out, and like action items and homework, and it can like range in a plethora of ways from like personal to professional and everything in between. So that's how I would differentiate it.
Are there any other questions?
You did it.
I have no hand-eye coordination. Thank you for that, guys. That was great. My question is around if you are mentoring someone, what are the different methods that you've used that are effective? And you've mentioned some for goal setting and figuring out kind of when in the planning sort of period, but keeping them motivated throughout and on track throughout, because planning and setting the goal is one thing, and we're all very good at that. And also, like, this person's out of your control. I feel like controlling yourself is obviously easier than trying to control someone else. But how do you go about getting people to stay accountable to stuff as well if you're kind of trying to guide them through that?
I'll give a one-sentence answer, which is I told my mentee to read Drive by Dan Pink. There are so many great books, but that's one of them.
Not to sound like a broken record, but starting with the why, I think probably spend the majority of the goal planning time just really focusing on the why. And usually when things fall off is because that why wasn't necessarily the one that really resonated with me or with the person I'm mentoring. It usually is like some other reason that caused them to set that goal. And so focusing on why you're doing it is just, I think, the most important part.
So do you just kind of keep repeating, remember your why, like this is what we discussed, don't forget, because I think people do forget as well.
I love sticky notes. So there is a sticky note in my bathroom with the goal. There's a sticky note in my mirror. And so different times of day, like wherever I'm going to be, whether that's a morning routine. So for me, it's I actually have one that's right next to my door. So every time I close my door at night when I go sleep, it's my gym goal, because I always do the gym in the morning. So even if I don't want to go to the gym, when I close my door to sleep at night, I have to see that sticky, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, should go to the gym.
But you also use like your why in order to, like, if you're feeling down in yourself, or to remind yourself about why you're doing.
Can I add a little something too? I also think asking why not is interesting to find out, like, okay, you might have a good why, but what is actually getting in your way? What are your obstacles? Like, what's preventing you from achieving the goal? And sometimes it can be really little things. Like the one example about like going to yoga class is like, if it's a pain in the ass to like get up in the dark and fumble around your drawers and find your clothes, maybe set them out the night before somewhere easy. So you like one little obstacle out of the way of like getting out of your cozy bed to get dressed and it's cold. Just put it somewhere easy to like put your clothes on and go, you know. So I think asking why not is really, really helpful, and digging into like what is actually getting in the way and help them kind of unpack that.
I think we have time for one more.
I have it. Okay. Hi, I'm Alina. You mentioned a lot during the conversation your mission statements or values. Can you share what they are at the moment? If you change them a lot, if you edit them a lot, why are you doing that if that happens? Things like that. And are they more related to your kind of personal life or more towards the professional aspect? Thank you.
So I've always been very motivated and career driven in some ways, just because I'm a perfectionist and I want to do the best that I can. But as I have progressed kind of through high school, college, and 10 years of my career, I've found that I'm more motivated when it's in line with my passions. Right? So my values tend to be, do I feel like I'm making a positive impact on the world? And am I helping the others around me? And so now my motivation to do well in my career is more to have a greater reach and impact to help other people grow and rise up and just kind of all rise up together, essentially. So that helps because now I have this other value that I see, like women and minorities struggling in technology. And if I can be successful, how can I help others also be successful in that environment and getting through their struggles or hurdles?
Definitely find myself changing my mission statement. A lot of it has to do with your tenure and years of experience and what do you value. I think early on in the career, as everybody out of grad school, everybody's super motivated to become the CEO. I think after 10 years, you sort of have to ask yourself, do I really want the CEO job or not? And why not? I think is very important. And then, you know, what will make me happy to keep working until I'm X years old?
My mission statements has definitely changed over time, and I think that's also guided my career decisions. So before I was at Stripe, I worked in venture, and my mission statement at that time was really being able to have an opportunity to not only just see an entrepreneur's journey, but also be able to support them through that. And so I did that through venture. And at one point, I realized that it was no longer, as motivating. And so I worked through a whole exercise to figure out what my mission statement was. And at that point, then when I rewrote it, it was that I wanted to work on efficiency enablers that would unleash other people's potential. So the thinking behind it was, so if I can do something in 10 hours, and instead of other people also spending 10 hours on it, they can spend 30 minutes. And that actually, when the Stripe opportunity came up, this was like, oh wow, I can work on payments infrastructure, which I never thought I'd do. Payments infrastructure that we can do it once really, really well, and then all these companies don't have to do that, and they can actually build their product, and they can do what they're really good at. So I'm sure that's going to change probably at some point, but that's really what's happened for me.
I agree with actually what Sharmeen has talked about, like tying up your mission statement with what you're passionate about. Over the years, I have changed quite a lot with respect to this is what I want to see myself be doing, or this is what I want to achieve, which is why I kind of trimmed it down to more of a 2-year to 3-year vision instead of setting a long-term vision. So that kind of helped me achieve whatever I wanted to. So one of that is around mentorship, right? I'm very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about coaching and teaching people or sharing my experiences and stuff. So I kind of tie that to writing is something that I'm picking up, communicating is something that I'm picking up, attending a lot more events around it, or partnering with West is something that kind of in a way became a goal and an objective for me.
Since you all have piece of paper, this is a homework assignment that you could do that my coach Jen got me to do. So it is. So for mission statement, she asked me to do, I am, underline, metaphor, that goal. So for mine, which is new, and it's also on our Google Drive 101 doc, at the top, along with my 6 values, so I don't forget, I am a superconductor and connector that empowers organizations and people, because I work at a consultancy. So again, I am, metaphor, that something. So I like it. This is your homework.
Well, with homework, we did, I don't know if everybody grabbed one. There's still more. There's some worksheet that we want everybody to, there they are. Karen has
just
them.
one more thing. Would you like to answer that question as well?
Oh, putting me on the spot. So I think a big thing for me is I've gotten a lot of feedback to speak up and to talk, and from my mentors, my managers, both of my VP, they were all telling me, you have a lot to say about product, you have a lot to say, and what you say does make everybody else think about it. But I wasn't saying it about other things, and they're like, just speak up in meetings and any opportunity that you have. So that is kind of not a mission statement, but that's a goal, I guess. And now the worksheet. So we just thought it would be nicer to have the people around you talk to each other about them, share with those that are with you. There's 4 questions on it, and come and grab one. You have about 20 minutes, and then if anybody wants to share it with everybody else, more than welcome.
Great. As Karen passing out the worksheet, I want to mention, I want to have everyone give a round of applause to Kiko. She's there. Esther, Karen, and Heidi. As you can see, it's a lot of work to put this together, and this would not happen without them. So thank you so much.
I also wanted to make sure we gave a huge round of applause for our panelists who were phenomenal, and also our moderator, Esther, for tonight. We wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to meet each other, which is why you've got these little slips of paper. But I think just real quick on clarification on what we'd like for you guys to do with these papers. So we wanted for people to, because you're already here, you're thinking about all the things that the panelists have discussed. We wanted you to have a chance to think of 2 techniques that you learned from the panel for tonight and jot it down real quick, like over the next 2 minutes, and then speak to the people next to you. I know it's kind of awkward and you don't know them, but this is a great opportunity because we're all together here because we want to learn and we want to network. So we want to give this opportunity for you guys, and I hope that the panelists will also come and mingle with the crowd. So thank you.
Hey, folks. So I wanted to just bring it to a close. Actually, if anybody wants to go on the spot and share anything that they talked about with the group, or anything you learned from the people around you that you met, could be something you learned, something you're signing up to do, new tip or trick. Anybody feel like sharing? Put you on the spot. Someone have a goal of public speaking? They could do it right now. Go ahead. Sorry. I don't know where the purple thing went.
Is this mic on? Oh, am I doing this one? Okay. So my name is Tao. I think I'm gonna make up this one real quick. My goal is, I set my goal in the beginning. It's been 2 years. I said my goal is I'm gonna do, get better, fitter, and I actually never done it. I only keep it for 30 days, but this year I break it down, and I'll start with a 2.5K of running every day, and then of course it's really hard to keep it up 6 in the morning. So I did an A/B testing on myself. I was like, maybe today I'm at 6, tomorrow I want to do it 12, and the next day I would try 6 o'clock, after work, to see where is my, the most effective for myself. So it's working, as it's been 60, 70 days now. So I've been doing from 2.5 to 5, and I did my first 10. It was horrible. No, the way from Mission to Sunset, it was so long that is unbearable. I was like, what did I do to myself? But I also, thanks to Instagram, that I kind of brag about it every day. Every day you just post one picture. I managed to do this. So it's kind of like myself keeping, accountable. As well as I do text my friends of what I ate today, and kind of proud of it. So that's my personal goal.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody have another one? Cool. Awesome. That was good.
Thank you, Esther. Okay, so I have they look like more, but they're all connected. Getting more sleep, going to bed without my phone around, watching only 1 hour of YouTube, I seem to believe that I have friends on YouTube and they're all talking to me, so I watch like more than an hour sometimes.
Switch to Twitch.
Good idea. Nice plug. Starting a morning gym routine with my husband, because if I do that, which I'm not doing that now, I would do it at night at 11 p.m. So when I get more hyper and I don't get too much sleep. Yeah, and cooking, again, more healthy recipes if I can. Yeah, something like that.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. Anybody else want to share? I know these were a lot of fitness related, which is great. I'll mention that I went to a conference and someone told me about an app called 7. 7 minutes. If you can find 7 minutes in your day to get exercise, it unlocks everything. And it turns out pretty much everybody has 10 minutes to spare. So I literally get up in my pajamas, I go downstairs, they have everything from like yoga stretch to like actually, you know, cardio, whatever. It's a great way to get started, and it's all about moving like barriers. Like I don't even put on workout clothes. I just go in my pajamas, and it doesn't matter. So anyway, if anybody's looking for other tips about how to start, even smaller than 2.5K a day. Cool. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed meeting each other. I hope you enjoyed the panel. Thank you to Twitch for sponsoring. To everyone in my working group, you guys did an amazing job. I think we're going to be sending out a survey afterwards. We would love feedback about what other topics might be interesting, different formats. It's all, right here, it's paper. We're going to use advanced machine learning to process all the documents. Anyway, so if you could fill out a survey, give us feedback, we would love to hear about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you share more about West?
Oh yeah, did I not describe it very well? I'm sorry. So the way that West works is we connect women with mentors from other companies. So there's 2 ways to sign up. One, you can have your company sponsor, and that it's a paid mentorship program. So for companies, basically they can say, I'd like to sponsor 5 women or 10 women or 20 women to participate in the program. And then we ask the companies also to nominate mentors. So that helps us have a really high quality mentor pool. And then the idea is that the other way to come in is as an individual. So you can pay to come in as an individual, and we will help find mentors from the pool to match you. And so I partner with a company called Everwise, and they're sort of like the 800-pound gorilla in mentorship. They do an amazing job matching folks, and they help sort of facilitate the program. You're matched, and you basically meet with your mentor for about 6 months. The commitment's about an hour a month and maybe another hour for homework. It is mentee-driven, so you come and you pick your goals. Now you guys are experts at that. So you pick your goals. What is it you want to achieve? What are the skills that you want to learn? We really believe in sort of horizontal skill building. So it's not how to get better at Java or at React or something like that, or not necessarily even about how to be a better product manager, but more horizontal skills. So it could be negotiation, it could be influence, it could be strategic thinking, it could be building personal brand. So there's lots of sort of horizontal things that will help you grow in your career that are not specific to your technical sort of domain expertise. We're targeting women in tech, but we define that super broadly. So engineering, QA, IT, but also sales engineering, product, design, technical program management, sales engineering, marketing ops, sort of, if you think you are technical in your role, you're welcome to join the program. So we run people through 6 months of mentorship, and you have access to the Everwise platform for a whole year. We launch it in cohorts so that we can learn from each group that goes in and make sure we have enough mentors each time. So we just launched one February 27th, and the next one will be sometime this summer, June or July. And there's more info on our website, joinwest.org. West actually stands for Women Entering and Staying in Tech. I forgot to say that earlier. But anyway, we welcome folks to participate, and of course, anyone can volunteer to be a mentor. So yes, would love for all of you to join or to convince your companies that they should reach out to us, and we'll set them up with a corporate sponsorship.
All right, so while everyone's still sitting and you have your pens out, we're going to do the survey thing, because I'm also going to pass this out right now. So if you can grab one, pass down, grab one, pass down, grab and pass, grab and pass. Okay. All right. Oh, there's a lot of food left on the back end, so if you are still hungry, please eat more. But the point of the feedback survey is that we really care about what is important for you and what you would like to learn about. And these events are really catered for our West mentees, West mentors, our communities, so we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for filling out the form and coming tonight.